James was still on the highway when the alert lit up his phone. The camera feed opened in a small rectangle of light, and inside that frame a woman in a dark pink blazer stood beside a crew with a cutting torch. The silver flagpole at his uncle's property was already half cut through. The American flag, still hanging from the line, slipped loose and dropped into the dirt. The bronze memorial plaque beside the concrete base cracked when the skid steer bucket clipped it. James did not shout. He did not panic. He simply stared, the way disciplined men do when anger has nowhere useful to go. He pulled onto the shoulder and watched the crew keep working as if they were trimming a hedge instead of destroying a dead Marine's memorial. The woman in pink was Brittany Ashcroft, the HOA president from the subdivision next door. For months she had treated the family's grief like a nuisance. That morning, she crossed a line she could never uncross. She had gone after the one thing James' uncle had raised every single day for decades, and she had no idea who she had just awakened. James was 49, tall, lean, and built like a man who had spent most of his life standing still under pressure. His short black hair was always neat, his black shirt always tucked, his black jeans always dark, and his brown boots always clean enough for court and rough enough for dirt. He was a federal prosecutor in Western Virginia, the kind of man who spent his career turning paper trails into convictions. He did not posture. He did not chase noise. He used the law the way a surgeon used a scalpel. His uncle's place sat on a ridge outside Bedford, with a porch that looked over quiet ground and a flagpole that had become part of the family's rhythm. His uncle, a retired Marine colonel, raised that flag every morning and lowered it every evening for years. It was not decoration. It was ritual. It was memory. It was the center of every Memorial Day, every family visit, every lesson James ever learned about service and restraint. On the other side of the property line sat a polished HOA development built for people who mistook fresh landscaping for authority. Brittany Ashcroft had made herself the voice of that place. She wore expensive dark pink jackets, pearl earrings, and the polished smile of someone who believed rules belonged to her if she repeated them often enough. Her letters started politely, then grew firmer, then turned personal. James' uncle kept every one of them in a folder beside his medals, because he believed it was better to keep proof than to waste energy on foolish people. That quiet patience was the warning sign Brittany ignored. The first strike came on a Friday morning before Memorial Day. James was still far from the property when the ring alert showed motion at the drive. The feed captured a yellow skid steer, a work trailer, and Brittany standing on the gravel in a dark pink blazer like she owned the horizon. A man in work clothes began cutting into the base of the flagpole. Another loaded tools. Brittany watched without hesitation. The metal gave way fast. The pole pitched forward. The flag slipped loose and landed face down in the dirt. The plaque that honored James' uncle and the family's Marine history shattered under the machine's bucket. Then the crew loaded the pole, the flag, and the broken plaque onto the trailer and drove away. James replayed the clip twice, then a third time, not because he needed proof, but because his mind refused to accept what his eyes had seen. This was not a misunderstanding. This was not an HOA correction. This was a deliberate act against a memorial. He saved the footage, preserved the messages, and called the sheriff's office. Then he called his own office and stepped back from anything connected to the matter, because he understood exactly how serious it had just become. By the time he reached the next exit, the story had already changed shape. Brittany had not simply broken a pole. She had tried to erase a veteran's presence from the land where he had lived and died. Once Brittany realized the family was not backing down, she pushed harder. A formal HOA notice arrived at the house claiming the memorial violated community appearance standards. Another letter followed with a fine attached. Then came a social post from Brittany implying the family was using grief to manufacture outrage. The post moved quickly through the subdivision, and the comments filled with people who enjoyed taking sides without checking facts. James answered with something much stronger than anger. He gathered the property records, the old survey, the memorial registration, the contractor invoices, and every message the crew had received. The records showed the land had never been part of the HOA. The pole had been a registered memorial. The association had no authority there at all. Brittany had not enforced a rule. She had invented one. Meanwhile, the family prepared for Memorial Day in silence. The porch was still there. The gravel was still there. The history was still there. Veterans from the old Marine network began calling. County neighbors started showing up. A local deputy stopped by and confirmed what James already knew. The HOA had crossed onto private land and destroyed protected property. Then came the final piece before the public break. The contractor turned over messages showing Brittany had pushed for the removal before the holiday because the family was expected back soon. She had not just wanted the pole gone. She wanted it gone before anyone could witness it. That was the moment the case stopped being a neighborhood fight and started becoming a public reckoning. By Memorial Day morning, the driveway had turned into a gathering place for veterans, family, and neighbors who wanted to see the truth with their own eyes. James stood in his black shirt, black jeans, and brown boots near the empty concrete base while a new pole was being prepared for installation. The atmosphere was calm, but it was the kind of calm that comes right before a storm breaks. Brittany arrived with her husband and a tight expression that still looked convinced the day would somehow favor her. She stayed at the edge of the property, watching the ceremony grow larger than her HOA ever had. Then the sheriff arrived. Then the county records officer. Then James' supervisor from the federal office. They did not come to argue. They came to document. The flag was raised on the new pole. The veterans stood in formation. The whole road seemed to hold its breath. Then, in front of everyone, the legal case was laid out plainly. Forged authority, trespass, destruction of a memorial, and a paper trail that proved Brittany had ordered the work herself. Her face changed from annoyance to disbelief to panic in a matter of seconds. That was the instant she understood the truth. The quiet man in black had not been powerless at all. He had simply been waiting for the law to finish speaking. By the end of the week, Brittany and the contractor were facing criminal and civil consequences. The HOA backed away fast once the property records became public. The man she had treated like a grieving obstacle turned out to be a federal prosecutor who knew exactly how to build a case, exactly how to preserve evidence, and exactly how to let someone ruin themselves with their own messages. Restitution paid for a new memorial pole, a stronger plaque, and a small legal support fund for veteran families facing HOA abuse. The neighborhood rewrote its rules. Property line verification became mandatory. No board could act without proof. The same community that once let Brittany flex now treated her name like a warning. James kept the flag flying. Every morning, the pole stood on the ridge again. Every evening, it came down with the same careful respect his uncle had taught him. The memorial became more than a symbol of loss. It became a reminder that grief is not weakness when it is backed by memory, discipline, and truth. If someone treated your family legacy like trash, would you let it go? Or would you make sure the truth was impossible to ignore?